Good evening, dear listeners. How are you doing today? And from which part of the world are you joining us? In today's video, we will explore the phenomenon of forgetting, not as a flaw of memory, but as a mystical and scientific process that holds deeper meaning. Did you know that every second your brain erases fragments of your memories? What has long been considered a weakness of the human mind may in fact be an ancient mechanism of survival and spiritual renewal. Imagine that forgetting is not an enemy, but a hidden force guiding you toward awakening. Now, allow yourself to hear how this journey begins. Memory often feels like a sacred chamber where every experience is preserved, as if each instant were etched in stone and kept safe from erosion. Yet the truth is far more fluid, far more fragile. What appears to be a vault of permanence is instead a river of impressions, always moving, always dissolving, never holding the same shape twice. Science has shown that with every passing second, countless details vanish, erased not by accident, but by a quiet rhythm within the brain itself. Researchers describe this subtle phenomenon as neural cleaning, a process by which the mind carefully removes fragments that no longer serve. Like the tide washing over the shore, faint traces of thought are swept away, leaving behind a clearer surface for new impressions to rest upon. It is not cruelty nor failure. It is a natural order, a choreography of forgetting that allows life to keep unfolding without suffocation, under the weight of endless recollection. Ancient mystics intuited this long before microscopes and laboratories. To them, the fading of memory was not a sign of weakness, but a sacred act of renewal. They taught that when memories dissolve, the soul is freed from old entanglements, as if heavy chains had quietly slipped from the wrists of the spirit. Forgetting, in their vision, was not emptiness. It was a doorway, a clearing in the forest through which the traveler might pass to reach a new horizon. Imagine for a moment a tree in late autumn. Its leaves fall, not in despair, but in preparation. Each leaf that drifts away opens the branches to the sky, so that light may penetrate, so that winter may sculpt the tree into silence, so that spring may awaken it again with fresh green life. In the same way, the mind lets go of fragments so that consciousness can breathe. If every leaf clung forever, the tree would break beneath its own burden. If every memory clung forever, the soul would drown in shadows of what once was. Neuroscience and mysticism whisper the same truth from different tongues. Forgetting is not loss, but transformation. The vanishing of detail is the birth of clarity. The mind, like a river, becomes purified through the gentle release of what no longer belongs. To resist this current is to struggle, but to flow with it is to find harmony. So in this opening, let us recognize, memory is not a static archive. It is a living, breathing rhythm of appearing and vanishing, remembering and releasing. And in that rhythm, hidden like a pulse within silence, lies the first lesson of liberation. What if forgetting were not an error, but an intention? What if the vanishing of memory were not the collapse of mind, but the secret hand-guiding order through chaos? To carry every moment endlessly would be unbearable, a flood without boundaries, drowning awareness in waves of unfinished echoes. The brain, in its wisdom, does not allow such drowning. It prunes, it chooses, it dissolves. And in this dissolution, something unexpected appears: balance. Scientists call it a paradox. In losing memory, reason is preserved. In the erosion of detail, clarity survives. The very act that seems like weakness becomes the root of strength. Without forgetting, thought itself would become entangled, unable to move forward, caught in a net of infinite fragments. Forgetting is the hidden architecture that allows consciousness to breathe. Mystical traditions saw this long ago, though in different language. They taught that forgetting is not a wound, but a ritual cleansing. When old memories are released, the soul becomes light enough to walk new roads. The spirit does not stumble under the burden of yesterday, but steps freely into today. In their vision, forgetting is not failure of the mind. It is the design of existence itself, an invisible gardener shaping the landscape of inner life. Imagine carrying a vessel filled with water that is never emptied. With every step more is poured in, until the vessel overflows, spilling and wasting what it cannot hold. The mind, too, would spill if it did not pour away some of what it gathers. To forget is to empty the vessel, not so that it remains barren, but so that it may hold what comes next. Forgetting makes space. Forgetting allows continuity. The paradox deepens when we realize that what disappears is never random. It is not chaos erasing at whim, but a quiet intelligence weaving its own pattern. Some fragments fade, while others remain, glowing like embers in the dark. What is held and what is lost is not chance alone, but an intricate dialogue between brain and spirit. From this dialogue emerges harmony, a balance between weight and release, memory and silence. So here, at the turning point, one sees clearly. Forgetting is not the enemy of life, but the hidden rhythm that permits life to unfold. Where the surface seems fragile, the foundation proves strong. And in the quiet erasure of memory lies the first glimpse of hidden order. Modern science speaks in terms of pruning, a careful trimming of the mind's dense forest. Neuroscientists describe synaptic pruning, a process where neural connections are cut back so that thought may flow with greater precision. Too many branches entangle, too many pathways confuse. The brain, like a skilled gardener, shapes its garden by removing what no longer nourishes. This cutting away is not destruction, but care, the silent labor of clarity at work. Imagine a rosebush left unattended. Its branches grow wild, tangled and heavy, until flowers lose their strength and air cannot pass between the leaves. The gardener, with steady hands, does not mourn the branches that fall. Instead, each cut opens space for sunlight. Each removal directs energy toward blossoms yet to come. In the same way, the brain selects which memories and connections to keep, shaping the soil of awareness into something vital, alive, and enduring. But beyond laboratories and microscopes, mysticism echoes the same vision with different music. Ancient seekers spoke of inner purification, the quiet washing of the soul from impressions that weigh it down. For them, forgetting was not a flaw of neurons, but a spiritual release, a dissolving of veils. To let go of what no longer serves was to polish the mirror of the heart, so that light could once again reflect without distortion. The resonance between these views is striking. Science measures synapses, mysticism speaks of essence, yet both point to the same truth. Forgetting is not erasure, it is refinement. It is the shaping of a path through chaos, the creation of space where silence can breathe. Every memory released is like a stone lifted from the traveler's pack, allowing the next steps to unfold without exhaustion. There is a quiet dignity in this unseen process. It reminds us that nature itself is always selective. Forests shed leaves, rivers carve away earth, oceans withdraw with tides. Nothing is static, and nothing is held forever. The mind, too, obeys this law, pruning, cleansing, allowing only what sustains life to remain. So the response to forgetting must change. No longer should it be feared as weakness or mourned as theft. Instead, it can be honored as the hidden gardener's touch, pruning away what would choke the spirit, leaving only what may blossom into awareness. Forgetting is not simply a passive fading, like paint weathered by the rain. It is an active renewal, a deliberate act written into the very rhythm of being. Each moment that disappears clears a space for something new to arrive, as if the stage of consciousness were swept clean for the next scene. Without this act of clearing, life would collapse under its own density, crowded by echoes of everything that once was. Consider the sky at dawn. Night withdraws, stars dim, shadows dissolve, and in that erasure, the day begins. The vanishing is not loss but transition, the removal of one layer so that another can shine. So too with memory. As fragments fall away, the mind awakens refreshed, no longer prisoner to the endless night of recollection. Forgetting acts like the sunrise itself, bringing the world forward by allowing darkness to dissolve. Scientists note that this constant deletion is essential for survival. If the brain retained every image, every sound, every detail, it would be buried in noise. By discarding, it sharpens. By releasing, it protects. This act is not negligence, but wisdom, a biological discipline that spares us from drowning in endless archives. What remains is not random. What stays is what allows life to be lived with coherence. Mystics, too, understood this. They spoke of daily death and rebirth, not of the body, but of the mind's burdens. Each act of forgetting was seen as a small release, a dying of yesterday's shadows so that today's light could emerge. To cling to every trace was to resist the flow of existence, but to allow forgetting was to step into the eternal current of renewal. Imagine a traveler walking a long road. If every stone carried in the hand were never dropped, soon the weight would be unbearable. Yet by releasing what is no longer needed, the traveler continues, unburdened, able to see the horizon. Forgetting acts in the same way. It frees the soul from the stones of memory, leaving only the strength to walk forward. So forgetting, as an act, becomes a gift. It is not emptiness, but preparation, not destruction, but creation. Each erased moment becomes a doorway for the next. Each silent gap becomes the space where the present can breathe. Life is not accumulation without end, but a rhythm of letting go. And in that rhythm, forgetting is the invisible hand that allows us to keep living. When something vanishes from the mind, the question arises, where does it go? To science, the answer has long been uncertain. Some insist the memory is destroyed beyond recovery, fragments dissolved into nothingness like smoke scattered in the wind. Others suggest that what seems lost remains hidden, stored in the depths of neural networks, waiting in silence for the right spark to awaken it again. Mystical teachings move further still. They speak of the subconscious as a vast secret library, a hidden archive beneath the surface of awareness. What disappears from daily recall does not vanish, but descends. Like manuscripts placed in a chamber, no ordinary visitor can enter. In dreams, in visions, in altered states of consciousness, seekers claim to glimpse these forgotten pages, half-burned, yet still legible. For them, forgetting is not destruction, but concealment, a veil that can be lifted under the right conditions. Imagine an ocean. On its surface, waves rise and break, always moving, always vanishing. Yet deep below, in the stillness, countless forms of life endure unseen. So it is with memory. What we no longer see on the surface may still dwell in hidden depths. Forgetting then becomes less an ending and more a descent, a passage into silence rather than into void. Neuroscience itself offers clues in this direction. Experiments reveal that under hypnosis or in rare moments of heightened awareness, people recall details thought lost forever. Names return, sensations reappear, events buried decades ago emerge with startling clarity. Such moments suggest that forgetting may not erase, but only close the book until the mind is ready to read again. This realization shifts the meaning of loss. What once seemed like absence becomes mystery. The forgotten transforms into the unseen, shaping us from shadows, guiding us from behind the veil. And the breaking point comes when one understands that forgetting is not only survival, not only cleansing, but also concealment with purpose. The mind hides what the spirit may not yet be prepared to face. So the fracture is not destruction, but revelation. What is lost is not gone. What is hidden is not erased. Forgetting breaks the illusion of permanence, but it also opens the possibility of rediscovery. It teaches that silence holds secrets, and that behind every disappearance may lie a deeper form of presence. There are moments when the boundary between forgetting and remembering dissolves, when the hidden library opens its doors. For centuries, seekers have described practices that pierce the veil of silence: meditation, chanting of mantras, the rhythm of prayer. These practices were not seen as escapes, but as keys, tools to unlock what lies beneath the surface of ordinary awareness. In deep meditation, the mind sinks below the chatter of daily thought. There, in the still water of consciousness, forgotten impressions stir like shadows moving at the edge of vision. A name arises unbidden. A long-lost memory flickers like a candle briefly lit. Emotions buried in silence return as whispers. To the mystics, this was evidence that nothing truly vanishes. What is forgotten has simply stepped aside, waiting for the seeker who dares to enter the inner chamber. Consider the sound of a mantra repeated endlessly, not as noise but as vibration. With each cycle, it carves away distraction, peeling back layers of thought until the listener enters a state where memory is no longer linear but radiant. In that radiance, past and present intertwine, and what once seemed lost may shine again. Prayer, too, worked in this way, not as a plea, but as a resonance that lifted the soul into harmony with its own hidden depths. Science, in its cautious way, has begun to map similar pathways. Under guided conditions, people retrieve impressions thought impossible to recall. Dreams, hypnosis, and sudden flashes of insight reveal fragments of lives half forgotten, proving that the brain is not a barren field but a vast landscape with concealed layers. What mystics called the soul's hidden archive, neuroscience calls the subconscious. Different words, the same truth. Forgetting is never final. And so forgetting ceases to be disappearance. It becomes transition. The mind is not a graveyard of lost impressions, but a sanctuary with many locked rooms. The culmination is this: forgetting transforms into a threshold, and through certain practices, that threshold can be crossed. The brain is not a wall, but a gatekeeper, guarding the mysteries of spirit until the seeker is prepared to enter. In this revelation lies the heart of the paradox. What fades is not gone, what vanishes is not dead. Forgetting becomes not the end of memory, but its transformation into another state of being, an unseen continuity linking the visible and the hidden. Science, cautious yet persistent, has begun to affirm what mystics intuited long ago, that forgetting is not final erasure, but a veil, thin and permeable under the right conditions. Researchers have found that the human mind, when guided through altered states such as hypnosis, lucid dreaming, or deep trance, can recover details thought lost forever. A face reappears, a sound returns, an emotion long buried awakens with startling clarity. What seemed erased was only hidden, waiting beneath the surface. Mystical traditions describe the same phenomenon in their own language. They speak of inner journeys where seekers descend into the subterranean chambers of consciousness, opening doors locked to ordinary thought. In dreams, in rituals, in moments of sudden illumination, the forgotten emerges not as fragments, but as living echoes. It is as if memory were an immense archive with corridors extending beyond sight, and only in special states does the key fit the lock. Imagine a library in twilight. By daylight, only certain shelves are visible, the rest cloaked in shadow. But when the light shifts, when perception alters, hidden aisles reveal themselves, filled with books waiting to be read. The mind functions in just this way. Forgetting is not destruction, but shadow, and altered states are the lanterns that reveal what dwells there still. Even myths reflect this understanding. Stories of souls drinking from the river Lethe before rebirth symbolize not annihilation, but the covering of memory, a deliberate veil. To live anew, one must forget, yet traces remain in the depths, shaping instinct, intuition, and the mysterious pull of déjà vu. Thus, myth and neuroscience, though distant in form, converge on the same truth. Forgetting hides, but does not obliterate. This unfolding leads to a profound realization. Memory is layered, woven from seen and unseen strands. The conscious mind touches only the surface, while beneath lie entire worlds of silence. Forgetting, then, is not an enemy to battle, but a guide pointing inward, toward depths where the soul and science meet. The path to this recognition is not through force, but through stillness, through practices that quiet the noise so the subtle may be heard. And so the story of forgetting deepens. What once appeared as absence now reveals itself as presence concealed. What we call lost may simply be awaiting the moment of return, carried in the secret currents of the inner world. If forgetting is a doorway, then one must ask, why does the doorway exist at all? Why should consciousness allow its treasures to slip into shadow? The answer is not cruelty, but compassion. Forgetting shields the spirit from unbearable weight, from the endless gravity of pain and sorrow. Without it, the human heart would fracture under the constant replay of wounds. Forgetting is not the silence of neglect, but the kindness of release. Think of a wound that slowly heals. The skin closes, the scar forms, and though the memory of pain remains, the sharp edge dulls. This dulling is not failure, it is mercy. Just as the body forgets the intensity of pain to allow life to continue, so too does the mind let go of details that would paralyze the soul if endlessly preserved. Forgetting resonates as protection, a guardian standing watch at the gates of memory. Science echoes this wisdom. Neurologists suggest that selective memory loss prevents trauma from overwhelming cognition. The brain filters, allowing the unbearable to fade, so that survival remains possible. If every wound stayed vivid, if every loss remained sharp, the present could never be lived. In this sense, forgetting is not weakness, but resilience, a hidden mechanism of survival and renewal. Mystics have long agreed, though they spoke of it in symbols. They described forgetting as a sacred veil placed upon the spirit, so that it might learn anew, so that lessons could unfold without drowning in the sorrow of all that came before. To forget was to give the soul another chance to breathe, to taste the present moment without chains. In their eyes, forgetting was the womb of rebirth. Imagine carrying an ancient vessel filled with bitter wine. If one never pours it out, the taste lingers, staining every drop of fresh water poured within. Yet by emptying it, the vessel is cleansed, ready to hold sweetness again. Forgetting empties the vessel of the heart. It makes space for joy, for clarity, for silence that nourishes instead of burdens. Thus, forgetting resonates not as absence, but as wisdom. It is a law of balance, ensuring that human beings do not collapse beneath the sheer density of their own histories. By forgetting, life can be lived in the present, and in that present lies freedom. At the end of this journey, forgetting no longer stands as an adversary, but as a companion. It is not the thief of life's moments, but the quiet guide that makes living possible. Each fragment released is not destruction, but transformation, the turning of one page so that another may be written. What once felt like loss now reveals itself as freedom, the gentle loosening of knots that once held the soul in place. Consider the flow of a river. If every drop were trapped, the current would cease, the water would stagnate, and life along its banks would wither. It is precisely the leaving, the letting go, that keeps the river alive. Forgetting is that current within the human mind, ensuring that the stream of consciousness never grows stagnant. What departs allows new waters to flow, and in that flow, life renews itself endlessly. Science frames it as adaptive function. Without forgetting, memory systems collapse, unable to distinguish the useful from the useless. Yet through selective release, clarity is preserved. In this resolution, forgetting is no longer a flaw, but a refinement, the mind's art of balance. Neuroscience calls it survival. Mysticism calls it liberation. Both point to the same truth. Forgetting is the silent architect of growth. Mystical voices affirm this in their own way. They describe forgetting as the spiritual breath, the inhalation of the present after the exhalation of the past. To cling to every exhale is to suffocate, but to release it is to live again. Thus forgetting becomes an ally, ensuring that the soul does not remain imprisoned in yesterday, but is carried into today with open hands. Imagine a garden where fallen petals are not mourned but welcomed as soil. Their decay becomes nourishment. Their absence becomes the ground for new life. Forgetting is the falling of petals in the inner garden. What vanishes becomes the unseen foundation for blossoms yet to come. In this rhythm, one begins to see the truth. What fades is not wasted, but transformed. So the resolution is simple, yet profound. Forgetting is freedom. It does not diminish who we are, but refines us into clarity. By letting go of the weight of what has been, consciousness opens to the miracle of what may come. Forgetting, once feared, is revealed as the hidden key to eternal renewal. Every day, countless fragments of memory dissolve into silence. Some vanish without notice. Others fade slowly, like the last glow of sunset sinking below the horizon. We often fear this disappearance, clinging to the belief that to forget is to lose a part of ourselves. Yet in truth, forgetting does not erase identity. It reshapes it. What is let go becomes the ground upon which new awareness stands. Imagine a vast field in winter. The harvest has ended, the stalks are cut, and the earth appears barren. Yet beneath the surface, in the stillness of frost, seeds lie hidden, waiting for the warmth to return. Forgetting works in the same way. What departs on the surface may remain as unseen nourishment, preparing the soil of consciousness for new growth. Loss is only the beginning of transformation. Science continues to describe this as efficiency, a brain that filters, protects, and refines so that clarity survives. Mysticism calls it rebirth, a spirit freed from yesterday's weight, able to encounter the present moment without chains. Both perspectives join in a quiet chorus, affirming that forgetting is not the end of memory, but the beginning of renewal. We live in a rhythm of remembering and forgetting, a tide that carries us forward whether or not we notice. To resist this tide is to suffer, to flow with it is to awaken. Each forgotten moment is not emptiness, but space, not death, but transition. Forgetting is the hidden language of the mind, the way it whispers, "You are free to begin again." Consider, too, how silence holds music. Notes cannot exist without pauses, and life cannot sing without forgetting. If every sound lingered endlessly, harmony would collapse into noise. In the same way, memory requires the balance of absence. Forgetting is the pause that makes the melody of life possible. So let us not mourn what fades, let us honor it. Every vanished image, every dissolved moment is part of the great design that allows consciousness to breathe, to renew, to evolve. Forgetting is not an enemy to fight, but a teacher to listen to. And perhaps, hidden in its silence, lies the most profound invitation of all, to awaken not by holding on, but by letting go. Thank you for walking through this journey of forgetting and remembrance, of silence and awakening. The time you have given is not a small offering, and I honor your presence here. Each moment you listened was a step into a landscape that is not only about the mind, but about the spirit. Together, we explored forgetting as more than absence. We discovered it as transformation, as the hidden rhythm that allows life to continue. I invite you now to pause for a breath, to notice the quiet between your thoughts. Within that quiet lies the same mystery we have spoken of, the same current of release and renewal. Forgetting, as we have seen, is not a flaw, but a gift. It softens pain, clears space, and prepares the heart for new beginnings. If you allow yourself, you can feel its presence even now, like the hush of evening air after the sun has set. As this reflection comes to a close, I offer you a few questions. Not for answers, but for contemplation. What memories have you been carrying that no longer nourish you? Can you imagine the freedom that might arise if you allowed them to dissolve, like leaves falling into the stream? What would it mean to see forgetting not as betrayal of the past, but as devotion to the present? Perhaps ask yourself, when you let go of what you cannot hold forever, what opens in its place? Is there a door waiting behind the veil of memory, a space where new light can enter? And if forgetting is truly a kind of rebirth, what life is waiting to be born within you now? These questions are not meant to be solved quickly. They are seeds. Let them rest within you. Let them root in silence, and see what blossoms in days to come. I close with gratitude to you, the listener, for offering your attention, and to the mystery of forgetting itself, which teaches us to live lightly, to breathe deeply, to step forward unburdened. If these words touched you, consider sharing your reflections in the comments below. Your voice may resonate with another soul who is also learning to embrace the gentle power of forgetting. And until we meet again, may you carry with you not the weight of all that has passed, but the freedom of all that is yet to come.